All right, we need to talk about this because it affects you and everyone else around you. The energy crisis that Europe is facing right now, it is not something to be taken lightly, especially with the rising inflation almost all across the world and what seems to be like an investment opportunity out of a massive chaos. And so in this video, I'm going to be talking about what exactly is Europe facing, like the impact of this crisis itself, and what are the alternatives or what are the other options that Europe has to be able to go or at least surpass or survive this crisis. But most importantly, what I'm going to be talking about, what I pointed out earlier, is how does this affect the global, it's like the global impact. How does it affect you and me and everyone around us? That's the most important part that we're gonna be covering in this video. And obviously, supply versus demand, because it seems to be like energy is going to be like the jackpot, like the lottery jackpot, you know, after winter that's coming up. And so, but in order for us to be able to understand this, we need to go back and understand how is Russia very much important, or at least at the base or at the source of this crisis, and how much Russian gas is important to Europe. And then we're gonna develop from there. So let's just dive right into it. So how much does Russia really supply in gas, or has been supplying gases to Europe? Let's go. Last year, 40%, 40% of Europe gas or natural gas energy came particularly from a single country, which is Russia. That's an equivalent of 155 billion cubic meters worth of natural gas. And if you look here, some of the top countries that have been exporting that much from Russia, as you can see, Germany is the number one. You got Italy, and then you got Netherlands, and then the list goes on all the way down to Belgium. But remember, Germany is Europe's biggest economy. And right now, Germany is in a really big jeopardy because they are the biggest importer. And with what's going on right now and all the sanctions that we've imposed to Russia, and the fact that Europe is trying to be independent from the Russian gas, it's going to cost a lot to a country like Germany, a driving force of the economy for Europe. And so, is Europe really able to like move past or cut off completely Russian natural gas, and so to get supply from somewhere else? Are they going to be able to fill up the gap? This is something that we need to cover. So I want to show you exactly what it looks like. This is literally a picture of all the pipelines supplying Europe. And you can see literally most of them, all, come from Russia. You can see the pipelines. Yes, you have Norway, which is basically the second biggest exporter, but it comes far, far, far behind Russia. A 40% gap fill, it's not something easy that you can fill up in a single day. And so when you look at all these countries, the first pipeline, which I call about the Nord Stream 1, literally goes through here and supplied to Germany. But as you can see, most of these pipelines, even the one that goes to Poland, is still end up into Germany. And then even the one that goes through into Ukraine is still end up into Germany. And then the rest of the other countries in Europe, in Italy, in France, and all the way up to Belgium, as I said. And so if we were to look into all of this and try to figure out exactly, are there any other options that Europe has to be able to fill up this gap? Obviously, there are some options that Europe has been looking into. Those options are, Norway they've been trying to pushing their production at least to be able to end that reliance on Russian natural gas by 2027. But we are in 2022. So that's like 5 years ahead. It's going to take a very, very long time Because the question to ask ourselves is, will Europe really be able to do this to end that reliance? Yes, they might be able to. It will take quite sometimes in order for them to do it. But the problem is, there's a difference between being willing to do it and actually doing it. Because the amount of time it will take to fill up the gap from the natural gas or the energy supplied by Russia, that the amount of time that it will take, there has to be a huge resilience, or should I say, that willingness to go through the pain to get rid of it. And that, I think, is what really Russia is betting on, is, are they really going to be able to do it? Because different countries, even though they're in a union, but they have different interests. Because everybody's accountable to their own people. And how are the people going to be feeling this? Because they're going to be the first in line feeling the pain. And so, with the time it will take, because I know some people will say, well, the solution would be to get it from other countries, like I mentioned Norway or Qatar, even a country like Azerbaijan. But you still need to build new pipelines, right? Which takes a very long time, years. And then there are certification process, and there's all these things that come into the whole picture that takes time to get there. But now what are you going to do in between then or now and then when that happens? Because it will take time before you get there. But another solution is LNG. LNG is pretty much liquefied natural gas, which the US supply. And as you can see, the United States has said it can supply up to 15 billion cubic meters of liquefied natural gas to Europe, to the European Union this year. 15. Russia supplied 155 billion cubic meters. That's a big difference. But not only that, even most people would say, well, LNG would be a really good option. But here's one thing you need. You need LNG terminals to be able to process this liquid natural gas, which Europe has a very limited capacity to be able to do this. And so that also causes another issue. And I want to point out something important. Germany is among the countries that wants to build new LNG terminals, but it plans to build 2 of them in the next 2 years. And that is not enough. And so if you look at the picture and how this is looking, it's like, even though Europe can surpass, or they can be able to do this to end our reliance in the long run or in the long term, but how much pain are they able to take on to be able to completely end the reliance? Because it's going to affect a lot. And this brings me to what I said earlier, the impact on the global economy, or at least everywhere. So as energy prices and fertilizers and food everything is skyrocketing, no one, or the people, as you can see here, people across the planet are or will be unable to absorb the rising cost. And as a result of this, you and I, or anyone else around us, we're going to be feeling the rising cost of almost anything. Because you got to think about, like, food and, the cost, processing or shipping, everything that will be affected by this. Literally. Because almost everything that you have around you is going to be getting a lot more expensive. And the more expensive it becomes, the harder it is, or the harder it becomes for any one of us to be able to afford almost anything. Something that was easier for you to get, tomorrow is going to be a little bit harder, or at least you're going to have to think twice before you get it. And so when we started getting to this, to those kind of situation, there's going to be a pressure. And that pressure is going to make it so, how much can literally the entire world will be able to go through in order to be able to contain this situation. And think about it, there's also politics that's out there. There's a lot of things that's going on. We got China, we got all these other problems that we still are dealing with since the pandemic, plus the supply chain disruptions. All that it's pointing to a direction that if today Europe literally end up in a recession, if it's not already is in one, and literally collapsing because of this energy crisis, which I think is what Russia is betting on, to be able to push it to the brink of collapse. And so, what would be the reaction? Or are we going to be able to scale back or try to bring everybody else to the table to negotiate? And so, to try and figure out a way to find a balance going through this. But now, I talked about an opportunity during a massive chaos, which is what I'm about to show you right now. Because some of the best performing stocks out there or other companies, it's been oil and energy. We've seen it. And the one of the company I want to point out the first is Occidental Petroleum. Year to date, this company has performed over 144%. Literally. And one of the, I'll say, legendary investors out there, Warren Buffett, has been buying billions and billions of dollars into this particular company. We all know that his strategy are always buy when everybody else is fearful and sell when everybody else is greedy. And so if he is his strategy has always been buying when it's cheap and selling when it's high. It's always been like for years, we've seen it. And so him putting billions of dollars into this company itself. I'm not saying you have to buy this company. I'm just giving you an example. It shows that he's already pointing to a direction that he's seeing energy is literally going to be, like I said, the jackpot, the lottery. Because we will not just in the blink of an eye to be able to surpass what the current flow has been or was set from the energy being supplied for a country like Russia. And that's going to be something really difficult to go through. And so I want to show you even the chart for the company itself. We've seen how almost every single other stock has been literally crashing since the beginning of this year. We've been going down into the rabbit hole. But you can see how this company has been making higher highs. And you can see on the chart here, we've been going higher and higher and higher than we've ever been before since the beginning of the year right here and where we are right now. It's showing you that energy is coming up. But there's also other plays that are really, I would say, more like a squeeze play. They're high risks, but are also high reward. But doesn't necessarily mean you have to put it. I'm just showing you this to show you how really some of these could potentially turn into lotteries. Like Indonesian Energy Corporation, right when this war started in Europe, we've seen these stocks literally going from below $4 and some change all the way up to $80 because of the potential that could be, right? We've seen like CEI, Camber Energy, right? It's been doing this little squeeze back to back. March, this is what happened. It jumped from 59 cents, somewhere around 60 cents, all the way up to almost $2 and some change. So we've seen this impact, but this is only the beginning because back then, at least the Russian pipes were still flowing energy into Europe. But the way it's looking like, they're going to shut it down completely because they're trying to open themselves to another market. And that's going to leave Europe into a massive, massive hole. And that hole, that 40% or 155 billion cubic meters of natural gas needs to be filled up. And that's going to take a very long time because with liquefied, like I said, LNG, you need terminals, which Europe does not have enough. And the US right now, we are supplying, or we're trying to supply at least this year, 15 billion cubic meter, which is far, far, far. It's like 10%, 10 times less than what they need. Norway, who's trying to ramp up, but it's going to take time, at least 5 years to get there. Building new pipelines will take a very long time. It would take years, and then you got to go to the certification process. There's a lot that going on into it. that everything or every single solution that Europe has to go through this crisis is going to take a very long time. But in the meantime, the pain is going to be there and it's going to be really, really hard. And with that being said, all of us, or everyone else around the world or around you and I, we are going to feel it. And so if today we're talking about inflation, or at least everything that we've seen from like the Federal Reserve trying to hike up interest rate to try and bring inflation down, because of what's going on, we're not out of the wood just yet. Because we have not seen what's really going to come when everything, or push comes to shove, when everything literally shuts down. We need to go through winter to actually see. There is a possibility for Europe to have nights of blackout, which, let's just say, hasn't happened in quite decades. Maybe back then when there was World War II, but we haven't seen something like that in a very long time, and we're gonna have to go through it. The rising cost of almost anything, including food, everything that we depend on, and plus this disruption in the supply chain. It's not something that everybody thinks that we've already fixed or is somehow going to fix itself, as long as we keep adding problems on top of it. And so, to make it short, all I can say is everybody should just be vigilant. Watch out. Be very smart with what you do, with what you have, or how much savings that you're putting together. Because, like I said, we're not out of the wood just yet. And so, with saying this, I'll stop my video right here. Probably going to have follow-ups to follow these things, because I do think energy is going to be big as we're moving forward. But again, time will tell, and we'll see what's going on. Because as you can see, even the war itself has been kind of like stagnant. It hasn't moved. It's like the move right now for Russia has been to slow things down until winter comes. So in that right there will be able to show us really what that dependency, how much does that affect the entire world. Thank you guys. Thanks for watching this video. As always, as for me, I'll see you in my next video. Bye-bye.